verse, which is in the Bhagavad Gita, Karanam, because of it is all based on uh, on one's association. That I think the verse is mentioned here. Yeah. Bhagavad Gita 13:22. Karanam gunasangasya sadasat yoni janmasu. According to uh, whom we associate with, then we will develop different qualities. So therefore, our acharyas give uh, great emphasis on the need to properly associate, to regularly associate, and very important instruction given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with whom not to associate. Asat Sangha Tyaga Eli Vaishnavachara. That's a special feature of those who are Vaishnavas. They are cautious. They should always be cautious to avoid association with especially three types of persons. Satsanga Tyaga, a Vaishnavachar, Stri Sangi, those who are attached or attracted to sense gratification. Men are attracted to women, women are attracted to men. Attraction is working on in both ways. Stri Sangi and Asadu, those who are not sadhus, that means materialistic persons. We should avoid their association. And Krishna Abhakta. There are many people who are bhaktas or devotees of different personalities or different gods, demigods. We should also be cautious about their association. So in this way, if one is serious about practicing spiritual life, then one must be guarding oneself in terms of one's association. And in many ways, that is one of the reasons, one of the strong reasons, important reasons why Srila Prabhupada wanted devotees to actually physically live together. It's not only a question of associating, but whenever it is possible, just like many years ago in in America, they have in Texas they have the Dallas Temple. So in the early days, where the devotees had chosen the house for the temple, the building, there were many houses that were available actually, and devotees purchased like 2 blocks altogether. And they renovated those homes, and they have a community. That means that even in the city, I think in some temples, like Pune actually, Pune is an example. Even in the city, it's possible to have such type of living condition, which is very conducive. And of course, Prabhupada may be more difficult for most devotees, but wanted that we actually establish communities, which is a very major aspect of Prabhupada's preaching mission. Srila Prabhupada could understand that actually modern day society, because Maya is so strong, because the influence of Kali Yuga is still very much present. He wanted that the devotees actually disconnect or disassociate themselves with that situation. And of course, we we do have some examples, but probably not many, of such communities. But Prabhupada was quite strong on this point that, and it's all connected with this whole topic here. The more we allow ourselves to be exposed to the material energy, which is pretty well all pervading today, it makes it it makes it very difficult for us to actually practice our Krishna consciousness. So many devotees are struggling. I mean, with this matter, uh, and we talk about this, of course, quite often. It has to do with with our devotees needing to to come to the point of understanding what is meant to be a more, we could call it, ideal uh, occupation. Krishna speaks about this in the Bhagavad Gita. What is meant to be the ideal prescribed duties? Prescribed duties is the main subject matter. There are Vedic, we call Vedic prescribed duties, and of course, modern day society is giving so many other duties or responsibilities to people. But those who are devotees should make an effort to actually uh, understand more, I would say clearly or more deeply, what do we actually mean by prescribed duties. Actually, interesting topic to discuss, because prescribed duties uh, means one thing to one person and means something else to another. So, if we can ask the question, what is, when Krishna speaks about prescribed duties in either the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad-Bhagavatam, what is he actually referring to? What is your understanding of prescribed
proclivity of the individual to prescribe duties? Nature.
But more specifically,
But as per Varna and Ashrama duties.
yes, that aspect is also there, according to prescribed duties is we have two levels of duties actually, isn't it? We have material duties, we have spiritual duties. So prescribed, and we could say there is prescription, just like you see a doctor and the doctor will give a prescription, right? You have this medicine, you take this. I mean, you have this particular disease, and he will prescribe a particular medicine. So, in our Shastra, both Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam especially, Krishna speaks about prescribed duties. So, these prescribed duties exist both in terms of our spiritual nature. We have a spiritual nature. We are primarily that spiritual nature, the Atma. But we also have this body, which is influenced, of course, by the modes of material nature. So there are prescribed duties for these two levels. I think most of us more easily understand the prescribed duties of the spirit soul. What are the prescribed duties of the spirit soul?
To remain a servant, restitution.
Huh?
To remain a servant.
To
Remain a servant.
To engage in devotional service. Yeah. Yes, that's in many ways. It's of course for us who have uh, been fortunate to come in contact with Vaishnavas. I mean, in the caliber of Srila Jiva Goswami and others. Uh, for us, it's quite clear that the spiritual duties are bhakti, but actually for most people who are transcendentalists, it's not so clear. You know, most people who are practicing spiritual life they don't know about pure bhakti. They may know something about bhakti, but don't know something about pure bhakti. So for devotees, spiritual prescribed duty is more, I would say, easily understood. Of course, it's one thing to understand and another to follow, to actually put into practice. What is less understood and what is, I would say, very important to understand because it will have an influence. Isn't it? It's just like question of association. According to the persons with whom we associate, we will develop a certain type of consciousness. According to the food that we eat, we develop a certain consciousness. In terms of the work that we do, we also develop certain consciousness. So therefore, prescribed duties for mankind, which is a subject matter especially elaborated upon by Srila Narada Muni, is a major topic or subject matter which I would say our devotees don't sufficiently discuss. What are the prescribed duties for mankind? Of course, it's the prescribed duties on the material platform is according to the modes of material nature, but there's more specifics to that which are elaborated. And actually, that's directly connected with this theme that in the last 3 months, especially, I've been focused on this theme of make Vrindavan villages. So our prescribed duties, the prescribed duties of mankind, not only for devotees, but of mankind in general, is directly connected with the whole concept of make Vrindavan villages. And that's a whole subject matter, of course, which needs to be uh, looked into more in detail, because the closer we come to that particular way of living, then the more easy it will become to actually develop the what Srila Jiva Goswami points out as being the primary or the only goal of life, which is to develop spiritually. So I'll read the text again just once here. So this is one of the 9 Yogendras speaking. Sri Antariksha said, O mighty armed king, by activating the material elements, the primeval soul of all creation has sent forth all living beings in higher and lower species, so that these conditioned souls can cultivate either sense gratification or ultimate liberation according to their desire. So, any questions on this verse?
So the prescribed duty, you said there are two types. Yeah, there is a body, there is a soul, and I think many of us have answered that. The prescribed duty of the soul is to remain engaged in the service of God. But that's how is the position of the soul. And the prescribed duty of the body is to assist, to help the soul to achieve. What is it? Because without that,
The prescribed duty of the body is
to help the soul to achieve that.
Yeah, right.
Otherwise, because now we are placed in such a way that although naturally the soul has to remain a servant, but we are placed in such an atmosphere that our body is not supporting. Our body is doing something else.
Yes, it means that there's a direct link and connection with what our body does. And of course, when we say body, we have both a gross body and a subtle body. Yeah. So, what the gross body does and also what the subtle body does means the activities of the subtle body are thinking, feeling, and willing. What we think, what we feel, and what we desire materially directly influences the soul. The soul, right, yeah. So it means that actually, for example, if we look at modern day society, because let's say the vast majority of people who are not knowing about the soul, then all of their activities being totally on the body platform is is not helping the soul. Rather, is keeping the soul covered, unconscious of its actual of its nature. So therefore, yeah, our material existence, our material condition, our material activities, our material occupation, all of these things have are meant to have a positive influence or a positive effect to help the living entity or the spirit soul advance spiritually. And that is why Krishna has created the world in such a way that there is a more, there's a preferred way of living. There's a preferred way of working, which is intimately connected with both land and cows, which means village life. Just like now, there's a whole big commotion and crisis. Crisis means a whole major discussion regarding how we as devotees are actually caring for cows. It's like hitting national news. Our philosophy is based on Bhagavad Gita, Srimad-Bhagavatam, where so much of emphasis is given regarding certain living entities that especially need protection. Bhagavatam, first canto, speaks about 5, 6 living entities, beginning with brahmanas, women, children, elders, and cows. need special attention. But because we are presently in modern day society, even as devotees, disconnected with what is a more natural, material way of living, we are not understanding and not able to actually properly give the kind of attention and protection that these particular dependent, these 5, 6 living entities are especially dependent. You know, women by nature are meant to be dependent on family members. Children are by nature dependent. Elders as well. Brahmanas are dependent. And cows are also dependent. So when the further we are away from this more natural lifestyle and occupation, then even without being conscious of it, we will fail to actually give the proper protection to these particular living entities. So it means it's important for us to discuss these matters, and what is especially important is that we as devotees more more closely live our lives as prescribed actually in the Shastra. Not only, the point being, not only spiritually, but also materially. Not only spiritually, but materially. Success of life is not only simply chanting Hare Krishna. The success of life is not simply worshipping the deities. Prabhupada explained, this is Kanista mentality. We worship the deities, we chant Hare Krishna, and then we don't care about Vaishnavas, and we don't care about cows, or we don't care about nature, we don't care about others. So that's a major point which requires more attention on the part of the devotees. Otherwise, we find ourselves in difficult situations.
What is the prescribed duties for the Vaishyas is Krishi Goraksha?
It is correct to say that because that verse is there, Krishi Goraksha Vanijam, Vaishya Karma Subhavacham. But
Yes.
it is not only for the Vaishyas, because Vedic culture has established and teaches us that the ideal and most ideal and recommended means for sustainable economy, which means for the whole society, is directly in connection with agriculture, krishi, and cow protection. It means that actually the Vaishyas are the ones who had that responsibility, but they engage the whole population in that activity. Because the majority of people see Vaishya is someone who has the ability to produce. He has that specific talent, quality of being able to engage people who will be engaged, who will allow themselves to be engaged, to produce, especially food, and also to produce, let's say, the various benefits that come with cow care. The Vaishyas, these are the two areas, isn't it? Agriculture and cow care. Krishi Goraksha. And Vanijam. Vanijam means business or trade based on Krishi and Goraksha. not trade based on what we produce in the factory, all kinds of useless commodities which people are enamored with in modern day society. So although Krishi and Goraksha is especially under the, let's say, direction of Vaishyas, it is meant to be the activity and the occupation for I mean, all the members of society. For example, the king knows that actually the best economy is Krishi Goraksha, and therefore he will be giving special importance to land, to providing facilities so that there's as much good production as possible. He's responsible for forests, whatever is there on the land. So many different um, opulences, isn't it? He's responsible for the forest. He's responsible for the water. Water is like absolutely essential for producing food. So he will protect rivers, lakes. He will actually make ponds. Traditionally, kings they make all kinds of facilities to facilitate farmers, to facilitate those who are Vaishyas. And the Brahmanas, they will uh, support and guide such kings because they're the ones who organize society to especially focus on Krishi Goraksha. And the vast majority of the population who are not having those leadership abilities, they will be engaged in those related activities connected with Krishi and Goraksha. They'll be engaged in, for example, before independence of India, especially, all types of cottage industries where people would be making their own farm. So when we lose that focus, as we have today, of Krishi Goraksha, not only for Vaishyas but for the whole population, then we fall in a situation that allows us, even unknowingly and unconsciously, or sometimes consciously also, of neglecting our duties and responsibilities in terms of protecting those living entities who are needing um, protection. Again, it's Brahmanas, cows, women, children, elders, the disease. and and because the vast majority of the population today, the vast majority of the leaders in society, and the vast majority of our own devotees are not connected with what is described as what is meant to be the prescribed duties in society. Uh, Therefore, we have allowed, and we, you know, again, very often we're just not conscious also. We have allowed all kinds of anomalies, irregularities to take place. And one of the irregularities, of course, is to think and to act in such a way that we have goshalas that are seen only as opportunities for providing milk, which is, you know, which is not actually the case. We hear, we read descriptions, especially of Vrindavan, but not only Vrindavan. I mean, even that was the case just going back 50 years, 100 years in India and other countries as well, where large herds of cows were there because that was the main activity, isn't it? That was mainstream activity in society. So, therefore, it's, I would say, extremely important for those who are meant to be leaders in general society, and especially those who are meant to be leaders within our ISKCON society, our Krishna consciousness movement, to really think over this matter, and not only think about it, but to actually take necessary steps so that we don't deviate from what is actually meant to be the prescribed duties of mankind. And that's why it's directly connected. And although I again and again try to make this point, but it seems to be like not really understood so clearly, that is one of the most important reasons why Srila Prabhupada gave emphasis to creating our own communities so that we can become aware of what our prescribed duties are and act accordingly. So, on the one side, of course, we need and we have and we need individuals who will preach the philosophy. But unless we have others who are living that philosophy, then our preaching will not be effective. It will just be words, you know. So both are absolutely essential, and otherwise people will point out the disparity between what your philosophy is selling and how you're actually using your philosophy. And they'll, you know, there will be substance to what they're telling. So, anyways, it's an important aspect. It's directly connected with where do we put our emphasis. The two ways that are mentioned here is one, to be involved materially in terms of sense gratification. The other is to be putting emphasis on the spiritual dimension. Well, there's a balance that is needed. It means we have our prescribed duties are need to be understood on these two levels. So it's not that we are dealing with material energies just for a sense gratification, but we should be dealing with material energy based on what is prescribed in the Shastra and how to properly utilize, properly engage as prescribed, as prescribed in the Shastra. So it means that the more we are in line with what is prescribed in the Shastra, then our condition, our position is safe. And the more we deviate from that, then our position is more dangerous, more precarious. I think we need to. Jai Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.